What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Black Ops 4 multiplayer. In today's episode, we're going to be moving into the LMG category, and we'll kick it off with the Titan. So first up, as always, let's have a look at the damage profile. Based on what I can tell, the Titan deals 46 damage at any range you'll be able to find within the multiplayer maps of this game. Now, just like with the LMGs in COD World War II, it is possible that there is a range value that's extremely high where this drops off to a lower damage value. However, within the multiplayer maps, there isn't a line of sight long enough to reach any drop-off point, and therefore, for all intents and purposes, the Titan deals 46 damage at all ranges, and this means it's going to be a 4-shot kill in core game modes, or a guaranteed 1-shot kill in hardcore unless the enemy has armor, or unless you're shooting through something. Our rate of fire with the Titan is relatively slow at 480 rounds per minute, and we don't have the option to use rapid fire on it. This means that our statistical minimum time to kill is going to be 375 milliseconds, which is actually a little bit on the slow side up close, but when you start to get to those longer ranges, it's very, very solid. I also wanted to point out that we do have a time to kill potential of 250 milliseconds, and this has to do with headshots, but we'll get into headshots in a little bit. It's more complex than just hitting a single headshot. As for armor, just like with pretty much all of the guns in this game, armor will make it so it will take you 1 extra shot to kill at all ranges. And this applies to both core as well as hardcore modes, unless you're running the FMJ attachment, which will completely negate that armor. Getting into ranges, as I said earlier, there isn't a single line of sight long enough on the regular multiplayer maps to drop off from a 4-shot kill. So as far as I'm concerned at least, the Titan will be a 4-shot kill at all ranges in core, and in hardcore, it will always be a 1-shot kill, unless, like I said, you're shooting somebody that has armor or you're shooting through something. This brings us to headshots, and with headshots we get a standard multiplier of 1.1, which takes our headshot damage to a 50. What this means is hitting just 1 headshot mixed in with body shots, this doesn't help, neither does hitting 2 headshots. However, if you can hit 3 headshots in a row with the Titan at any range, you will get yourself a very fast 3-shot kill, and this is where that 250 millisecond time to kill potential comes in. Obviously, this isn't going to be super practical at the longer ranges, but up close and personal, this can actually help you if you manage to hit those 3 headshots in a row. For hipfire, as you can see here, the Titan has the worst hipfire spread in the LMG category. It is slightly wider than the Hades as well as the VKM. As for idle sway, as you can see here, there is very little idle sway with the Titan. It barely moves when you're aiming down sight, and therefore you're going to have that really good first shot accuracy. Speaking of accuracy, let's have a look at the recoil, and as you can see here, it is a very accurate gun. There is a small amount of recoil, it kicks within a very contained area. Generally, recoil should never really be an issue for you with the Titan. Our magazine capacity on the Titan is quite respectable at 75 rounds with 225 total starting ammo, which is quite a bit. And we also have the option for extended mags, which bumps that up to 100 rounds with 300 in reserve. And finally, we can also put on extended mags too, which gives us 150 rounds with 450 total starting ammo, which is absolutely insane. You should never run out of ammo with that particular setup. I think it's a little overkill to have extended mags too, but it is always an option if you want an insane amount of ammo. As for our reload add time, it is quite slow, but then again, this is an LMG, so it's actually pretty much average for an LMG at 4.51 seconds. For aim down sight time, it's quite slow, but relatively average for LMGs at 350 milliseconds. Keep in mind, this did just get a nerf recently at the time of recording this video. But with quick draw, we can reduce that down to roughly 260 milliseconds, which is pretty close to the aim down sight time of most of the SMGs. As for our sprint out time, once again, this is quite slow at 350 milliseconds, but with the Gung Ho perk, we can cut this down to 220 milliseconds, or if you break your sprint by aiming down sight while using Gung Ho, you can eliminate that sprint out time. Getting into movement speed, I was actually quite surprised to find that the Titan has the same movement speed as assault rifles and tactical rifles at 95%. And it's actually the same story with the standard aim down sight stray speed. This is 40%, which is quite good. However, keep in mind with the LMGs, when you're aiming down sight and you're moving and you're firing your gun, the moment you start firing your gun, it slows you down pretty considerably, unlike with the assault rifles and tactical rifles in this game. I should also mention that the stock attachment will bump this 40% stray speed up to 59%, but once again, when you're firing your gun, it will still slow you down from this 59%. So those are all the important stats for the Titan. Now let's move into the operator mod, and this is one that has caused quite a lot of confusion with people, and it's called the Oppressor, and what it does is it suppresses enemies that are near your bullet stream. It's kind of a vague description, so let's have a look and see what it actually does. When you are shooting near enemies but not hitting them, it will have a suppression effect. This is what that suppression effect looks like when you're aiming down sight and somebody with the Titan with this mod is shooting at you. And as you can see, it kind of bounces your aim around just very, very slightly, and it blurs your vision a little bit, but generally you're still able to fight back just fine. However, when you have a look at it when you're not aiming down sight and he is shooting very close to you, you will see that your screen is bouncing around all over the place. It's extremely powerful against people when they're not aiming down sight, and it can definitely throw those players off quite a bit. I also wanted to point out the range at which this operator mod will affect an enemy player. As you can see here, this is the maximum distance where it will affect you. Any further away, you won't be affected by it at all. Any closer, and it will start affecting you even more. As for my opinion of this operator mod, I really feel like it's not worth it. And a big reason for this is it relies on you missing your shots rather than hitting your shots. And I would much rather be using attachments that reward me for hitting my shots rather than missing. And also, since it's an operator mod, it will take 3 of your pick 10 points to use. So unless you want to be kind of trolly, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using this. As for other attachments on the Titan, let's start it off with the optics. Personally, I think the iron sights are just fine, and generally I'm not going to be running an optic, but sometimes I have that extra class point, so therefore I might throw something like a reflex on here. Also, out of all of the guns to use the thermal or the Envir sight on, I think the Titan is one of the better ones, so that is also a great option, but it's not really an optic that I would tend to use. For the non-optical attachments, quick draw is a really big one right now for the Titan, I feel like, just because that aim down sight time is extremely slow without it, so quick draw is basically a must-have for me on this. Stock is also great, even though they did recently nerf it a little bit, it still will be helping you a decent amount when you're aiming down sight and strafing in a gunfight. With extended mags, sometimes I like to pop it on there just as a nice added bonus, but it's not necessary by any means. A 75 round base magazine is very respectable and there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it's nice to bump that up to 100 or maybe even 150 if you want to go big with that. And this just leaves us with the FMJ attachments. Generally, I'm not going to be running just FMJ1 without FMJ2 on the Titan, but combining both of those attachments can work really well for a really specialized class. This is the type of class that really excels at taking out enemy score streaks as well as a bunch of enemy equipment, because with FMJ2, you deal a ton of damage to score streaks. Just having a look at a UAV, you can take that down within a couple seconds. You can actually take it down faster than you'd be able to take it down with a launcher. Same thing goes with something like a sniper's nest or an attack chopper. It'll take you a few seconds of sustained fire at that, but you can take those down much, much faster than you could if you were firing several rockets in order to take it down. So finally, this brings us into a couple great example classes I have for you guys with the Titan. First up is my really well-balanced Titan class. This is my try-hard Titan class that I will often pull out if I run into one of those lobbies where a bunch of other people are using Titans. This one absolutely dominates at pretty much any range as well. This is very good up close, very good at a distance. With this, we're using quick draw, stock, as well as extended mags. All of those attachments are really great for winning lots of consecutive gunfights. I have a launcher on this one because we're not running FMJ2, and it is nice to be able to take out an enemy UAV or enemy equipment, and the launcher is excellent for this. Our gear is stim shot, which just helps us stay in the fight and get back in the fight faster after taking damage. We're using our special issue equipment, and for our perks, we've got engineer to help us spot enemy equipment as well as score streaks. Gung Ho to get that really fast sprint out time so we can stay aggressive with this and we don't have to wait for 350 milliseconds to fire our gun. And finally, Dead Silence, because we will be somewhat aggressive with this and I just hate hearing my own footsteps. This class right here, at least for me, is the perfect Titan class setup currently. I absolutely love it. It's extremely versatile. You can use it up close, you can use it as a distance, and it will be quite effective at taking out your enemies. This brings us to the second class setup, and this is that really specialized setup with both FMJ1 as well as FMJ2. We've also got quick draw in here just because, like I said earlier, it's kind of a crutch for me on the Titan. And extended mags, which is kind of important on this class because this one is designed to take out enemy streaks very, very quickly and easily. Our gear on this one is going to be the ComSec device because I tend to hang back a little bit and you can actually rack up a decent amount of score by shooting down enemy UAVs as well as choppers and everything like that with the FMJ attachment. And this will actually help you get your streaks up faster when you're combining that with the ComSec device. Our equipment, once again, is going to be Special Issue. Our Tier 1 perk is Engineer, which is very important with this one because we need to be able to locate those streaks as fast as possible, especially as they're coming in on the map. You want to be able to get to them as quickly as possible so you can take them out. And for our Tier 2 perk, instead of Gung Ho, we're going to be running Cold-Blooded on this one, just so that it takes a bit longer for the enemy streaks to target you. So if you pull this class out to take down an attack chopper, for instance, you should have plenty of time to take down that attack chopper before it even acknowledges your existence if you have Cold-Blooded equipped. This particular Titan class setup isn't one that I would normally be running around with. However, it is nice to have this class setup handy for taking out streaks faster than you can take them out with a launcher. Instead of switching to a standard launcher class, I will often pick this instead for taking out an enemy chopper or whatever they happen to call in against me. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the Titan. Personally, I think the Titan is an excellent LMG even after the recent nerfs to it, one of the best in the game actually. And the reason behind this is it's simply so versatile. It's really good at longer ranges because it's accurate and it's always going to be a 4-shot kill. And up close, it can often hold its own just fine against assault rifles and SMGs. Of course though, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the Titan? Do you like it where it is? Do you think it's overpowered? Do you think it's underpowered? Somewhere in between? Let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, keep in mind I've covered all of the assault rifles and all of the tactical rifles so far. I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.